Now, I have a business called Even a Nerd, and people say you're not nerdy. And I always tell them, well, just ask some of my high school friends if I'm faking this. Why would you fake being a nerd, right? To me, a nerd is somebody who has gotten immersed in any subject. Are we all accounting nerds? Do we speak the language of accounting? That makes us nerds, right? And we're fascinated by that subject, sometimes to the point of distraction. So when I was in 7th grade, I decided I wanted to be an accountant. So you heard Deborah talk about when she decided it was later in life. I was nerdy at that age already. And not only that, I was motivated by money. I went to my math teacher and said, what do you do if you're good at math? And she said, one of two things. You can be a teacher or you can be a CPA. And I said, which one makes the most money? And she said, CPA. So I said, okay, that's what I'm going to be. And at that time also, my dad was selling tax books to CPAs. So he thought they were the best job you could have. He would go out there to accounting firms, and he thought that was a great job. So I already had that in mind. So when I heard that, everything I did from that point forward was about becoming a CPA and a partner. I wanted to be a partner in a CPA firm. I didn't know what the heck that meant. I mean, we don't know what that is when we're in school. And so I started on that path. So 15 years later, and I started with Deloitte. I went to college, and I started Deloitte in tax. So I did tax for 15 years. And by the time I got to the end of the rainbow at 15 years, I made partner, and I quit the next day. Shows you how much we know. I didn't know what it was. I started doing accounting, and I was really kind of drawn to the computer side, but because I had this mission to be this CPA, I was very focused on that. So that was a good thing. It kept me motivated. I learned all kinds of things about business. But when I got to 15 years and I was doing tax all this time, I realized that I wasn't making a difference. I was handing my clients a tax return, and what did they do with it? Nobody hugged my neck when I gave them their tax return. I never got a, yay, thank you, this is fabulous. Now I owe the IRS $50,000. I never got any feedback, and I knew I hated it because I handed that client that return that had a $50,000 balance on it, and I knew they didn't know how to pay it. And I didn't know what to do to help them figure that out. So when I made partner, I thought, this isn't going to get any better, and I'm committing myself to this. And it was the first time I thought, I really don't like this, and I'm not good at it. Other people around me were better at it than I was. So it motivated me to go forth and try to do something about that. First of all, to get the people who are good at the work that I was trying to do the recognition they deserved. And secondly, to make sure nobody else was suffering like I did for all that time. And then really thirdly, it was to make the clients better off because I wanted to help those clients. How many of you want to help your clients do better? That's why we got into this, right? And that was what I realized the worst part of doing tax was not the boring crap of putting the number here and over there and all that junk. It was the psychological burden I had for that client because I knew they couldn't pay it. And I would go home at night not being able to sleep and knowing I had to call this client and say, you've got to pay the IRS $50,000 or more or whatever it was. And generally that was because the client didn't call me before they did something stupid that cost them to owe a bunch of tax, right? So the frustration of not being seen as somebody that can help the client is what really ultimately made me decide that it wasn't what I wanted to do. So then I went in search of a technology that would help us be better at it. And so there's lots of automation out there, but when I went in front of accountants with technology and said, here's the perfect tool, use this, the clients, the CPAs would go, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to ask the client a question. I'm not going to show them something if I don't know with 100% confidence the answer. Have you ever felt like that? We have such a burden on ourselves to be the answer people, and you heard multiple people today already talk about that. That is not our job. Yes, we need to understand the rules in which people need to operate, and we need to know how to file taxes if that's what we do. But our clients need us to help them understand that they actually already know their own answers. And that's what I believe I was put on this earth to do, is to help us find ways to help those clients find their way to the answer and then be able to figure out how to solve whatever problem they've come up with. And again, everybody you've heard from today is talking about similar things. But for me, it was, and again, I'm a partner. 15 years I've been doing tax. I don't know really how to improve things. I didn't know. I could KPI all day long. I could tell you everything's bad and then come back next year and I'll tell you if you're bad or worse or better. right? We can say this is what I see, but when it came to how do I improve my marketing to achieve a different outcome, I was like, I don't know. And I couldn't even tell them what in marketing was the problem. So that's what I'm here to help you understand. How do we do that? And so we are good at numbers. Again, I liked math. I love the numbers. Give me an Excel spreadsheet and I can go all day, right? We love those Excel spreadsheets. But it's about figuring out below that what it is that needs to happen to improve the outcome that we're so good at accurately reporting. So the financial statement, it's our do-all, end-all, right? If I've got the financial statement in balance and present it to a client, they should be thrilled, right? You ever had a client thrilled by that? They're thrilled because the banker said they had to do it, right? And one of the things I've learned in working with clients in the Napa Valley and wineries is that the owners don't really understand this stuff, and they have to act like they do, right? And then they have leaders below them that don't understand it, and then they've got people below them that don't understand it. So everybody's acting like they know what the heck we're talking about and trying to do things based on what we show them in that, and they have absolutely no clue. That is what our job is, to break this down so you can take this information that we care about and translate it so that those clients can do something with it. And that's what I'm here to talk about, because it's this stuff that goes on behind that financial statement. All that transactional work that we do that goes into creating that beautiful financial statement is where the trouble is. And we don't know how to help them get into that and unwrap it. So that's what we're going to talk about. And that is also, by the way, where the value lives. We've talked about charging based on value, but we don't know how to get into the conversation or how to identify the value and improve the value for that owner, because we're trying to help them, right? We got to dig in below that financial statement. The general ledger is not the answer. It's the stuff that got in there, and it gets in there badly in many cases. In the wine industry, you wouldn't believe. We have a complex industry, and they're small businesses. So they have a manufacturing process, a farming process. They have all this regulation around it. They have sales via e-commerce. They have a tasting room, a retail store. They have all this complexity, and it's all that other stuff that feeds into the general ledger that is where the pain and suffering is starting, and we've got to go deeper to fix it. So when you look at a business, the fact that we have a financial statement result that is not where we want it to be is because of these two things. And again, you've heard this all day. Get it in your brain. It's the people applying processes that create the challenges that we've got to fix. So if we're going to fix it, we've got to dig into those two things. So one of the first questions we ask, an owner will always say, Sally's not doing her job. Sally's a problem, I got to fire Sally, right? It's always Sally's fault. Everybody has a Sally. You ask the owner, is it just Sally, or is it everybody who's been in that seat that's had a problem? And then they kind of go, well, kind of everybody's been in the seat. Is it a people or a process problem? I want you to write that down. Ask them that. Do you think it's a people or a process? We go to people, and it is most often a process problem that creates whatever difficulty they're facing. So that's where we got to start looking. How do we get into what's going on in the people and the processes that hopefully they're consistently applying? And this is where you can help them step back and look at those processes. One of the most valuable things I do for clients is sit in a room and ask them what everybody does. And I'm from South Carolina. Do you think I know anything about wine or wineries? I don't know what to order. Do not ask me what to pair with something, y'all. I'm not a wine expert. Unless it's bacon. Pair anything you want with bacon. Just have the bacon. It all goes with that. So I go to a winery, and I have a business owner, literally have this owner sitting in the room, banging on the table going, why can't you tell me what I sold and who bought it and how much I have left to sell? Nobody in her company can tell her that in the moment, where am I? That's the kind of stuff business owners want. They don't want to wait 6 weeks and go to QuickBooks and look it up and read a financial statement that they can't understand. They want their team to be able to be on top of what's happening so they can change in that moment. That's where we need to be helping them. And yes, we want it to get to the financials, but it needs to be in the moment insight so that they can take corrective action. And so I said, okay, let's get everybody in a room and let's see what the process is. And so we had all the people sitting there, and the first person said, I do this, And then I send this report, I do an invoice, and then I send the invoice to somebody else, and that person then keys it into something else, and then they send that report to somebody else who keys it into something else, and then they correct it and do it to something else. There were 6 people keying in one piece of information. There's a lot of opportunity in the wine industry, y'all. And I said, why are you doing that? Why didn't you just say, because it's not in the right format, and the data's not right over here, and this is... And I said, isn't there a way you can manually take the document from here and get it over there? And they said, yeah, but that costs $500. The owner's sitting there, and I said, $500? That doesn't sound like that much. Why didn't you spend it? Because we were focused on cost cutting. And I turned to the owner and said, would it be worth $500 for you to get this information faster? And she said, absolutely. And I said, you need to correct that. You've got people trained to focus on cost cutting, and it's costing you what you want to know. That's the kind of stuff we can do. We could step back as an external observer and see what's really going on. Now, I didn't have to make that recommendation, but I didn't have to say anything. She was like, spend the $500. And that's what we want to do. We want to bring out the opportunities for improvement. We don't want to make people feel bad, but we want to make it visible so that corrective action can happen, and it can come from them when you make it visible enough. So if we're going to do people and process work, and we're going to get improvement through companies, we can't just fix the owner. We can't just teach the owner that they need to measure a bunch of stuff and impose KPIs on everybody below them. Does that change you if you're in an environment where they say you must sell 10% more every month? That's your KPI. Revenue growth is 10%. That's our goal. Anybody ever had that as a target? I've been in corporate environments, big companies where that's the goal every year, 10% growth. You go back and do a budget and you present what you think it'll take to get you there, and you give it to the owners, and the owners say, sorry, we're not going to give you any of the expenses you want, but you still got to get 10% growth. Do you think I go back get motivated and informed about how I'm going to do it? If we just stop with the owner and say, okay, this is your problem, AR days, for example. Accounts receivable days are the problem. Then the owner goes to the team and says, okay, we're going to improve accounts receivable days to 35 from 50. He tells the team that. The leaders go back and say, we're going to improve AR days from 50 to 30. The team goes, okay. They go back to their desk. What do? Same darn thing they did yesterday. They have no idea. That's where we need to break it down so that people can understand it. And that's the opportunity that we have. But it can't stop at the owner. Giving the owner a bunch of new things to count is not going to solve the problem with the people in the front lines are screwing things up. So we've got to get it from the owner to the leaders all the way down to the teams in order to fix the problem that we're facing. And that's what's fun, because when I do training for teams and they go, oh my gosh, now I know what I need to do, light bulbs come off, that's when it's fun, y'all. People don't go, oh, here comes that nerdy accountant. They go, here comes that nerdy accountant, and she's going to help us do things better. Very different life for us and very different for our clients. But we've got to get all three of these entities, these groups of people in alignment. So this is a tool that we use, and this is part of the training that I do. The Impactful Advisor is the advisory training. I found this training in 2004, officially. No, 2001. Somewhere in, it doesn't matter. Somewhere in 2000, y'all. A long time ago, some of you weren't even born. But I found this because I had a piece of software that was an interactive dashboard. And I could show my clients that they were screwed up here, and I could move levers and show them how much cash they could generate. It's like what Mike was talking about. But I could show them. Any owner that sees that goes, oh my gosh, now I get it. I found the tool. I went out to accountants and said, here's nirvana for you. Get this in your hands, show it to a client, and you'll be a hero. And the accountants, 100% of them almost, there are probably 5% that said, okay, I'm going to go do it. The other 95 said, where's the report I can mail them? I don't want to have a conversation, and I don't know how to help them if they say they want to improve AR days. I don't know what to tell them to do. So they wouldn't show the client the tool. So that's when I went in search of an advisory training methodology, which helped me immensely. It's what I use with wineries today. And this is one of the first basic, simple tools. I will email you this. You can write it on a piece of paper. We start with this, asking the client what they want to do. And you also heard that before. But this is a structured way. You take this little bingo card and you start, and imagine your client comes in, and this is exactly how I felt the first time I went in a winery. I'm from South Carolina. Hi, y'all. You got wine? And they're talking about Chardonnay and the legs and the bouquet and the nose and all these things. And I'm terrified, right? The first time I went to the winery, the winemaker came in and gave me this scientific explanation about the lees and the legs and the blah, blah, blah. By the time he finished, I went, I'm not drinking it. Whatever that is, that's scary science stuff, and I'm not drinking it. And I'm not going to raise my hand and say, I don't know what you're talking about, because I'm intimidated and frightened. I'm embarrassed for you to hear my accent because you know I'm a redneck and I don't know what the heck this fine wine is. And I probably can't afford your stuff anyway. So that's how our clients feel. That was the first time I actually viscerally felt it in my body, what it felt like for a client to be in the room with me when I'm talking about GAAP and LIFO this and Section 179 and BOI, which is the worst thing ever invented. That's how it feels. So they're coming into the meeting scared for you to find out how stupid they are and whatever they've done, right? They're ashamed. They're terrified. They know you're going to think badly of them. They're coming in the room. This is how we start. I want to talk about 5 areas of your business. Mike has 6. I only got 5. I'm a little slower in South Carolina. So we have financial, customer, operations, people, and end in mind. We call it a scope grid, the S being the $sign. 5 areas of the business that we're going to talk about. We're going to start by making you feel good and ask you what you got right. Have you ever asked a client that? I never did. Where's it broken? Let's jump in and fix it. Because that's what I'm good at, negative stuff. I can find every problem. What have you done right? They start off by saying, well, you know, I've made payroll every month. That's great. You get them to write that down. Financially, what have we done right? I've paid all my vendors on time. Customers, I got customers. That's a plus. Operationally, my systems work like clockwork. I've got a great point of sale system. I've got a great e-commerce solution in place. I've got a great automation tool for bills. I've got Bill in-house. I'm doing a bunch of stuff right. People, I've got a great team. Some of them has been with me for a very long time. And then we get to this last column. End in mind. First of all, we start with that bottom corner with the big Y in it. That's the Simon Sinek start with why. Why are you in this business? That is the framework for everything you do with that client going forward. We don't start there, do we? What's broken, and let me get a spreadsheet, is where we start. But why don't we find out why are they doing this? What motivates them to get in? In my case, why are you a winery? And they go, to make a profit. And we go, wrong business if that's your goal. Way harder to make a profit doing wine than it is to sell shoes, which is my favorite example. So we ask them why, and it takes them into the emotional center of what it is they really care about. Think about your why. My why, you heard it. I think there's magic in numbers, and I want everybody to appreciate that fact, so I've got to unlock it for them. That's what I think we need to do. So when I ask them the why and they start to think, it really gives them this alignment around what they need to do from that point forward. And it helps me understand what I've got to focus on for them. If they're trying to build a legacy, is that the same thing as if they're trying to sell it to a big corporation? Very different in where we should do everything. All the tax work, all the transactional management, the people we need to have on staff. Very different. So if I don't know that and just dig into the financial statements, I've missed a big opportunity. So they go through what works. And then the next thing is the fun stuff for us. What's broken? Yay! My financial statements, my cash flow is a problem. It's always the one in the wine industry. My customers, I don't have enough recurring customers. Operations, my checkout system is messed up. It takes too long to get a bill once you've gotten people drunk and had them buy wine. Y'all been to a winery? It's a great method for selling. Take people, give them free alcohol, and then hand them an order sheet, and they'll not even know what they're doing and sign it. So that's a model that you need to replicate. Get all of your clients drunk before you do your sales call. Okay. Okay. So what works? what's a weakness, and then this is the most important, which we never do. What is your ideal outcome? And this starts at the owner level. What do you want financially? Our clients do not want cash flow necessarily. They don't want profit necessarily. They want long-term value. Very different focus. So I got to know, what does financial success look like for you? So I can align with that. Otherwise, I'm aligning to my goal, which is profitability for everybody in the world, right? So we got to ask. And then what do you want the customers? We want to cover the United States with our wine, or we want to just get the California market, or we want to do this or that, capture that operationally. So all of that. You've got a roadmap now for everything you want to do with that client. And you've made that client, the client owner's going, you heard what Mike said, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. There's all this hand waving and This gives them a process to organize where the challenges are. And it gives you a process where you don't have to say anything, you just ask them, okay, tell me about that. Now I know we're accountants, and I work with, and we look at DISC, D-I-S-C, which is similar to what Mike described, the 4 behavioral styles, the 4 styles of communication. Accountants are wired for analytics. So if I give you this tool and tell you to fill it in, you're going to do it in, every single box has to be filled out in order, right? You're going to have to let that go, and you're going to hop around with the owner and not try to keep them in it's got to be all the good stuff across the thing and all the bad stuff. Let them hop and fill it in, and when you finish, you'll have the whole thing filled in, and you could say, this is what I heard you say. Where in this is your top priority? And then let's go from there. Very simple. Again, you could draw this on a piece of paper. I can send you the blank. It's not all that magical, but the idea is this questioning is where you set the bar at the beginning, and we use this in prospecting calls. And when we finish, and so this is where we are wired to do all of our work as traditional accountants. That one box on fire, what's your financial problem? I'm going to fix it. We're going to go beyond that and fill in all this stuff. And when we finish, we've got their target across all these parts of the business. The owner looks up almost 100% of the time and goes, wait, you're accountants, right? Because we're not asking this stuff. And I'm just asking. I'm not telling them anything. I don't have to have the answers. I have to know how to let them find their way and give them a way to get clarity around what's going on in their own business. So owner, now we got this grid where the owner has told us what matters. This is the fun part. Now you say, let's bring in your leadership team and have them do it and see if that's in alignment with you. What do you think? Does it match? Never. The owner has a very clear idea, or sometimes they don't, but they think they do, of what's going on, and the rest of the company doesn't know. They don't know the ideal outcome is this or that or whatever. They know what's broken, but they don't know what we're trying to hit. And they don't oftentimes know the why. So we help them communicate that, and then we take it to the teams. We have the teams fill it out, and then we bring everybody together and say, okay, you think this is broken, and the owner goes, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And they have a whole different level of perspective on what's happening. And then those leaders can take it to the teams and get their input, and it'll be totally different. Who has the most impact on what happens with the customer? The team. And we don't bring them into the conversation. That's where you can help. You can get those teams educated and informed so that they can contribute in a positive and valuable way. Okay, so the shift we've got to make to serve those clients better like we really want to is to stop looking behind us and start looking at what we can do going forward. And that's where this is going to open up that dialogue with your client. We start from financial statements, absolutely. Do I say tear up your financials? Absolutely not. But if you stop with that, you haven't served that client. We want to turn those financial statements into a story of the business. And if we just hand them the financial statements, most of the clients don't even want them, do they? Do your clients demand them? They don't even want them. What does that tell you about value? They don't read them. They're going to something else. So the other question I would ask you is, in addition to people versus process, first number one question I would ask is, where do you go to see if your business is on track? And that is where you need to go. Wherever it is, in my case, it's the point of sale system. And our point of sale systems are crappy, and you can't get a good dashboard out. So I went out and found dashboards that would go on top of that to give those owners that stuff. And yes, it's going to get to the financials, but I want to see right now what we're selling. So work on that. And there are a bunch of great tools in the marketplace that do that. There's A2X and there's Sender and a bunch of other stuff that you can get your clients to put on top of their e-commerce solution. So go there. Where are they going? That's where we want to be. That's where the top value is. When I'm going over there fixing that problem, and yes, it's going to feed to the financials, and they need to be right too, but get these other things right, and your value goes up dramatically. This is what financial statements are to our clients. You may speak Greek. It says, it is Greek to me in Greek. It's a foreign language, and our job is to make it understandable and relevant to them. And so how are we going to do that? We're going to break down the language barrier in 3 ways. We got to make it understandable. It's got to be relevant. What can I do with it? And it has to be actionable. Those are the 3 goals that we need to have to elevate our value and to provide the service level that I know we're all out there trying to provide to help that client. So what do these tell me is the first question when I hand them a financial statement. This is where you train the teams. And I use this book that I've been using from the beginning of time. I think it was written in the dark ages. The cover is a ledger sheet, clearly designed by an accountant. Am I a nerd? Yes. That's the book. It's basic. I teach a class to winery salespeople. They all read this book before I start the class. They read the first 4 chapters. They come in and I say, how'd you like the book? It was the best. Some of them say I fell asleep. But it was the best explanation I've seen. It's very simple about financial statements. And then I do a tree analogy where I draw an apple tree and I break the tree down into financial statements. The yield on the tree is your income statement. The trunk on the tree is the balance sheet. It tells you what you have to sustain future yield. And then the cash flow is a measurement of the water through the tree. How much was consumed by the top in producing yield and how much water was consumed in growing the trunk of the tree year over year. You cut the trunk of the tree open, you see retained earnings. That's called equity, and that's what you want in addition to current period earnings. Tree gets reset to 0 every year, just like the income statement. That top of the tree goes to 0, start over every year. Most of the people love that. That's a dumb little thing, and I draw it sometimes just like that. That's me drawing. I have artists in my family. They didn't get it from me, y'all. It's as good as it gets. There's a slide deck I created because I got so tired of explaining this to people, and it's on slideshare.net, which is now turned into a kind of a crappy clickbait thing, but you can download the deck, and I have that concept laid out if you want to get access to that. But when I do that, I ask people at the end of training what stood out, and the tree always stands out for people because it's just so simple and goofy, and I think it's my artwork, frankly. It's artwork. Okay, business goals, and then we talk about the 3 financial statements. We got to educate them about how they're different. Most people only know one, right? They never look at a balance sheet. And cash flow, you can't even get to cash flow in QuickBooks unless you know to look for it. It's not on the standard report list, which really bugs the crap out of me. Cash flow should be first. We need to see that, and that's where all the questions are. If I made a profit, where's my cash, right? So we need to educate them about that. So the owner first decides what the direction's going to be. Am I going to focus on growing more bones in my stash? They set the target, and we need a common understanding of that. Then they want to know, if I get them to agree what they want to do, then their next question is, okay, how do I do it? And that's when I go, I don't know, your problem. Call me in a year. No, that's when I go, okay, let me show you. I'm going to bring your teams in, and we're going to explain what this means to them. So we're going to get the leadership team. My go-to tool is Fathom. Anybody using Fathom? Attaches to QuickBooks Desktop and online. I use it for one screen. You can use a bunch of other cool stuff. It's got all kinds of things. This one screen is called the Goal Seek screen. Anybody doing that? This is how you sell an owner on what you're going to do. It has the drivers of cash flow. You can pick any other driver. If they don't want cash flow, it has profitability. It has other financial metrics you can choose. And then it shows the drivers of that outcome. So if I'm trying to improve cash flow, you can see, and I can't read my own slide there, it's tiny. You can see that it's price or volume or it's balance sheet stuff. This is what's revolutionary about this. It brings P&L stuff and balance sheet stuff together on one thing, you can slide and show, if I could get you to improve AR by 10 days, here's how much cash. And that top slide, that top line will move and you'll see cash flow improving. When the owners see that, wait, you can help me do that? Yes. And what about this? We can raise price and here's what happens. Most owners go to volume as a strategy. This shows them that won't necessarily work. You can sell more at zero profit all day long and not get where you're trying to go. So this is how you educate them. You've ever had that conversation with the client? And they go, I don't know what you're talking about. This solves that problem. So check this one out. And this is where you get the owners first and then the leaders with them to come in the room and educate them about what they need to focus on. And then you can download that and you can see these are the things we agreed to do. And then you hold those people accountable and find out what's happening. Department leaders then own the change. And now we've got to get the people in the next layer connected so that they can make the change happen. Okay, so owner, then leaders, and you do education across all of the teams so that the leader is in the room, the owner's in the room, and the teams are in the room to understand how the financial components all fit together. Then nobody has an excuse for not understanding what you're talking about. So then the leaders come back and go, okay, how do I get my teams involved? This is when you have to break it down to what those teams can control. So I get the sales team in the room and the components that they can control. So I'm in a tasting room in a winery. So if I'm on the sales team and I'm not selling enough, who do you think I blame for my lack of sale? Starts with an M. Marketing. The people before me are the problem, not me, right? It's always the marketing. It's not sending me enough, in this case, visitors to a retail facility. So the problem, they say, is the visitor traffic. So it's not my fault. So I created a model. This is called a profit equation planner. This is one of the tools in the training that we do. And it's a spreadsheet. And it breaks the revenue targets down into two components, which are the only two components you can affect: price and volume. I put this up on the screen and I say, this is what you have control over. And I show the visitor traffic number and I make it bigger. And you see that red section at the bottom that shows the analysis? You see that's the impact the changes had on the bottom line. So again, a what-if view of what they can control and how it can impact things. And then I have them say, what should we fix? I can shove 10,000 people in the tasting room and you're not going to get one more dollar of sales. What has to happen? They got to buy, right? So it's not just the visitors, it's how many you're able to convert. So we go down to the conversion line and say, what if you could sell one more person out of your current visitors? What would that do to revenue? And they see it and they go, oh my gosh. And then we say, what would you do to make that happen? I don't know. I know you get me drunk and I'll buy more, right? Give me a better thing of wine. They come up with 20 ideas to increase the sales for the people that are in the tasting room. This is how you move the needle. You can tell the owner all day long, you can get the leadership team all day long, but if you don't get those frontline people moving needles, nothing is going to improve. So you got to educate them on how their actions impact that final outcome that you're trying to achieve. They light up. And so I go, okay, how hard is that? And what if I got everybody that bought to buy one more bottle? So they're already on their way to the register. How do you get them to add something else? And somebody came up with this. Watch out if you come to Napa Valley. They said, go to a 3-bottle carrier. And I was like, what do you mean? You know that cardboard box that has 3 holes? If somebody just buys 2 and they're walking to the thing and it's out of balance, and it might be just us accountants that buy wine, if it's missing a hole, they're going to freak out. And they're going to want a 3rd bottle, and it's easy to get them to buy it. So the size of the carrier influenced how many bottles a person would buy. That didn't come from the owner. That didn't come from the leadership team. That came from somebody in the tasting room who said, this is what we do. They went back and did it, and sales went up. How do you think that tasting room person felt after that? They're on commission. So now they can see that I have control over this thing big goal that you've told me to do. I can break it down into these parts, and now I have impact on the business, and I can help you achieve your business goals. So this is the kind of thing that you want to do. And also, if you can't get any more visitors, you can't get them to buy another bottle, your next option is to go to what people buy. So if you go down to that next section under price, the mix of wine that you buy. Most of the wineries in Napa have a cab, which is our higher end product, and they have a white wine, a Chardonnay or a Sauvignon Blanc. See, I can almost pronounce that correctly after being in Napa for 18 years. I always go to Chardonnay because I can say that one right. So you got a red and a white. The red's expensive, the white's less expensive. If I can convert one white buyer to a red, if I can get them to add a red at a higher price, I've increased revenue. Same number of bottles, I can flip them from a white to a red. Now I've increased revenue without doing anything else. And then I ask the tasting room, is there a way for you to do that? And they go, absolutely. If you like this white, you'll like this red, and I get them to add that to what they're buying. So that's the kind of stuff where you empower those teams. And again, they love it. It's like a game now. This is like a video game. Let's play with this. What can we do? And then I say, okay, these are all the things you can do. What's the easiest thing to target of these choices? What do you think is the easiest for you guys to do? And they tell me, whatever it is. One more to each person who buys, or get the mix, or whatever. And I say, okay, what are we going to count to make sure this is happening? We're going to count number of bottles per customer that buys. How are we going to do it? Okay, we got to go build a $5,000 expensive dashboard and do all this. No, get a chalkboard and a piece of chalk or a piece of paper and a pencil and just do hash mark. End of the day or halfway through the day. This is the magic. Before the day is over, let's check in and see how many bottles per visitor we have gotten sold. If our goal is 5 and we're at 4, then everybody knows by the end of the day they're going to focus on improving that number. And that's how you do it. You break it down, you get one simple thing to count, you get the team behind it, they design the measure. Very different from what most of us are hearing in the KPI space. Let's build 1,000 KPIs at the top and impose them on those people at the front lines who don't have a clue what to do with it. So start with at the top, get buy-in at the leadership level, and then execute at the team level. Teams are the ones who bring that change to life. Teams are the ones who can kill whatever you're trying to accomplish, right? You've seen it. I don't care how great the Ritz says they are. One bad person at any point in your experience can totally destroy that brand for you. And that's exactly what happens in most companies. If we don't get the teams involved, nothing we do matters. I don't care what logo you have on the wall or what beautiful mission and vision and all that stuff. If that person in the front doesn't represent it, it doesn't matter. So the key is to get them to understand the levers they can push to improve sales or whatever you're trying to improve. So with that, I want you to think about stop barking up the wrong tree, y'all. And you notice the Basset Hounds. We raised them when I was growing up. They're kind of my thing. I don't have one now, but I've had them my whole life, and they're the best dogs. So, and they're also sort of represent who I am, redneck, floppy ears, I am who I am, slobbery, all that stuff. So stop barking up the wrong tree and trying to focus on getting everything 100% right. That owner in the room, I asked her specifically, would you rather have 100% accuracy 2 weeks from now or 90% right today? And she said, 90% right today, absolutely. Timely beats accuracy. And give them information that is visible. Ask them where it is they care about, where they go, and get over there with them and help them get it faster and in a different way. There's my contact stuff. I'm Geni at Even a Nerd. I will email you any of that you want. I'll send you that profit equation planner. I have another version that's not winery specific that has some other things like looking at marketing and how you can improve the marketing results and measure that. I've got different service level models that are kind of similar that you can look at and then create your own much prettier version than the one that I did. So with that, thank you for having me. It's so great to be here.